शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवम् श्रीराधा कृष्ण पदान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome to our Saturday and Sunday morning series on the Sri Harinam Chintamani. In the last week, by mistake, we had the class on Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday was a Balram Jayanti festival, so we could not have it. So we have been discussing the 7th chapter of Sri Harinam Chintamani, that is Shruti Shastra Nindanam. And we had 2 classes. I will just summarize what we discussed in the last 2 classes, and then we will continue. After the Mangalacharan, Haridas Thakur says, I will elaborate on the 4th offense. And then he goes on to explain how the Vedas are the only evidence for truth, the Vedas which are called as Amnai. And the Vedas means the Shruti, Smriti, the Pancharatras, the Itihasas, Puranas, everything is included in it. And we saw that quite in detail. We had a discussion. And then we mentioned the Vedas specifically speak about subjects which are beyond this material world, that is the transcendental world. And the material senses have these 4 defects: Karna, Patava, Brahma, Vipralipsa, and Pramad. And because of these defects, without the Vedas, one cannot go to the highest path. And Krishna being merciful, he has given the Vedas. Now the Vedas, excuse me, the Vedas speak about these Dashamula Tattva, these 10 truths. And also, I guess we had quite an elaborate discussion on this Dashamula Tattva. We discussed many of the verses discussing what is Praman and Pramaya. Praman is the Vedic knowledge. Pramaya is that which is proved through the Praman, the 7 things which are proved. These are the Dashamula Tattva. By studying these Dashamula Tattva, avidya is destroyed and the soul gets transcendental knowledge. And we saw this verse, famous verse from the Dashamula Tattva Shiksha of Thakur. Amnaya Praha Tattvam Harim E Paramam Sarva Shaktiman Rasabdim Tad Bhinnam Shajivan Prakritin Kavalitan Tad Vimuktanscha Bhavati Bhavat Bheda Bheda Prakasham Sakalam Api Hari Sadhananam Shuddha Bhaktim Satyatad Pritam Eveti Upadishati Janan Gaurachandra Swayamsa. So these Dashamula Tattva are there in the Sanatan Shiksha for which is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. First, the Vedas are the source. And from the Vedas, we understand Harim Hi Paramam Tattvam. This is the second Pramaya. He is Sarva Shaktiman, he is Rasabdim. So 3 Pramayas speak about the absolute truth. And then the Jivas are Bhinna. Some are conditioned, some are liberated. And there is a Bheda-Ved relationship between the Jivas and the Lord. And how to understand? By Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti, and the Sadhyas, Krishna Prem. So we saw this, how these all topics are being discussed. So after mentioning about the Pramana and Pramayas, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes on to mention how, after mentioning the Abhideya and then the Prayojan, then these Vedas which speak about these 9 truths have to be learned from a spiritual master, and one who criticizes the Vedas, actually, which speak about this Dashamula Tattva, he's an offender. And then also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes on to explain how these other philosophies, the Shad Darshans, which do not give the actual conclusion of the Vedas, they also, if you prescribe to these other philosophies, then you end up criticizing the Vedas. And among them specifically, Bhaktivinoda Thakur specifically speaks from 40 to 45, especially the Mayavad philosophy. Excuse me. Specifically, he speaks about the Mayavad philosophy. And this is where we discussed and finished our discussion. So now we will begin with text 46. Text 46 to 50, the theme is excuse me. The Vedic scriptures give the way to become purified. The Vedic teachings, how you have to read the Vedic scriptures or how to interpret the Vedic scriptures and get the true understanding of the Vedic scriptures is being mentioned now. This is from 46 to 50. Shrutira abhidavritti kariya samyojana Shuddha bhakti labhi jiva paye premadhana. I've got a lot of cold because of change of weather here. Please forgive me. By following the activities described in the Vedas, one eventually attains pure devotional service. One attains a great treasure of pure love for Lord Krishna. Premat Dhana. So here is a footnote because there is one term which has been given. Shrutira Abhidha Vritti. And today we will be spending a lot of time to understand what is Abhritti. But let us first see what the footnote is, and then I will go to the slides. When the primary and secondary meanings of the words are both possible interpretations in a given passage, it is not proper to accept the secondary meanings and the interpretation of the passage that goes with them. So every Vedic text can be interpreted in two ways. One is called as the primary meaning, and the second is called as the secondary meaning. The primary meaning is in Sanskrit called as Abhidha Vritti or Mukhya Vritti. The secondary meaning is called as Gauna Vritti or Lakshana Vritti. Now, this is very important concept, and many devotees are not so familiar with these concepts. How many of you have heard the Mukhya Vritti and the Gaun Vritti, or the Abhidha Vritti or the Lakshan Vritti here? You can raise your hands. How many of you have heard about these terms? The Mukhya Vritti and the Gaun Vritti, the Abhidha and the Lakshana Vritti. How many of you have heard? You can either type in the chat box or raise your hands. Or if you have not heard also, you can type it in the chat box. Yeah, so many must have not heard this. So I will go to the slides and explain this. Yeah, many have not heard. If the Vedic scripture is interpreted in this way, according to the primary meanings of the words, it will be seen that the Vedas teach pure devotional service. Primary and secondary interpretations should be seen in this way. So very short footnote is given about the Mukhya Vritti and the Gauna Vritti. Now let us go into this discussion of the Mukhya Vritti and the Gauna Vritti to understand this. In fact, this will help us to understand also our study of Vedic knowledge. Now, I am taking this example from the Uddhav Gita, where the soul, who is the soul killer, is mentioned. Naradehamadhyam sulabham sudurlabham plavam sukalpam gurukarnadharam mayanukulena nabhasvaeti tiram pumam bhavabdim nataret sa atmaha. The human body, Naradeyam, which can award all benefit of in life, Adhyam, is automatically obtained by the laws of nature. So, Sulabham. Sulabham means it's naturally we progress through the 84 lakh species and get the Sulabham, this human body. Although it is Sulabham, but it is Sudurlabham, although it is very rare achievement to attain a human body. And this human body is compared to a perfectly constructed boat, Plavam Sukalpam. And when there is a boat, there has to be a captain of the boat, having a spiritual master as the captain, Guru Karnadharam. And the instructions of the personality of Godhead as favorable winds impelling it on its course. Maya anukulena nabhasva iviteram. Nabha means wind, and itaram. Iva means it is compared to what? It is compared to the favorable winds. Just like the boat, if it has to reach a particular destination, then the wind should blow in that direction. So the teachings of the Vedas, when we study the teachings of the Vedas, our desires will flow towards the Lord. So that is how the analogy is. Considering all these advantages, a human being, Puman, who does not utilize his human life, na taret, to cross the ocean of material existence, Bhavabdim, must be considered the killer of his own soul. Sa Atmaha. Now, how in this verse it is mentioned that he is the killer of his own soul. How can the soul be killed? Because from the Bhagavad Gita, we know Avinashi tu tad vidhi Yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyayasya na kashit kartumarati. Know that it is indestructible. The soul is indestructible. So how do you know you can kill the soul? So this is how do we understand the meaning of Atmaha, killer of the soul? Because the Gita teaching says that the soul is indestructible. It is pervaded by the body. By it, the body is pervaded. Ena sarvam idam tatam. No one can destroy. Na kashit vinasham kartum arhati. So this verse is very clearly saying that it cannot be destroyed. And that which is indestructible, avyayasya. Avyaya means it cannot be destroyed. So the Gita ontologically explains that the soul cannot be killed. So how is it that in this verse of the Uddhav Gita, it is mentioned that the soul is the killer. We kill the soul. So how do we understand? How do we interpret this verse? Because here in the Gita, it is saying, no, the soul is not killed. Further, in the 16th chapter, it is mentioned, Trividam narkasedam dvaram nashanam atma kama krodhas tata lobha tasmadetattrayam tajet. Lust, anger, and greed. Kama, krodha, tata, lobha. The three gates leading to hell. Narakasya trividam dwaram. Destroy the self. Atmana nashanam. So here also, if we see the term nashanam, Atma is nash. It is destroyed. Therefore, one should give up these three. Tasmad etat trayam tajet. We should give up these three. So here also, it seems like the soul is destroyed, Atmana Nashanam. So how do we understand this term now when we study the Vedas or when we interpret? So this is where the Mukhya Vritti or the Gauna Vritti come into picture. There is use of figurative expressions. So in the Shastras, there is what is called as the Mukhya Vritti or the Abhidha Vritti, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur has used, and the Gauna Vritti or the Lakshana Vritti. Vritti means the mode of understanding or the explanation, how you know, the primary explanation or the secondary explanation, the mode and the meaning and understanding. So here in this verse, when it is mentioned, Dwaram Nashanam Atmana, means the Atma is not destroyed, but Atma's soul's consciousness for spiritual awakening, that is destroyed. So here in this verse, we should take the secondary meaning, the Gauna Vritti, and not the primary meaning. The primary meaning is that the soul is indestructible by its nature. And here also in this verse, the killer of the soul means that one who doesn't take to spiritual life and leads like a animal in animal consciousness, his consciousness is degraded. And that's how degradation of consciousness is also like killing the soul's consciousness. So we have to take the secondary meaning again here in this verse. So that is why there are these figurative expressions, and they are called as Lakshana Vritti or Gauna Vritti. So you kill the soul's real life, that is Krishna consciousness, if we don't take up to Krishna consciousness after getting this human form, or if we are caught in lust, anger, and greed, then the soul's pure consciousness is destroyed. So something like that. That is a figurative expression. Now, let us go to another example, try to understand. Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter, 2.54, he is asking, Sthita pragyasya ka bhasha samadhi sthitasya keshava sthitadhi kim prabhasheta kim asita vrajeta kim. O Keshava, what is the description of this person situated in Samadhi? Samadhi sasya ka bhasha. What is the description? Bhasha. The Sthita Pragyasya. What does he speak? Sthitadhi kim prabhasheta. What does he speak? How does he sit? Kim asita. How does he move? Vrajeta kim. So if you see this question of Arjuna, if you try to directly understand the meaning of Arjuna's question, how does a person who is Sthita Pragya, who is in divine consciousness, how does he speak? Is his speech sweet, or is his speech harsh, or does he speak Bengali or Sanskrit? This is what Arjuna is asking. How does he sit? How does he move? Is this Arjuna speaking about a model, role model, who is on he's doing modeling and he's sitting for posture, some pose for the cameraman to take pictures, and he's walking on the tramp. So is Arjuna asking this? No, there is some deeper meaning. So the direct meaning or the Mukhya Vritti doesn't make sense. So that time, when the direct meaning doesn't make sense, then we should see the indirect meaning. That is the Gauna Vritti or the Lakshan Vritti. So Ka Bhasha means, what are the symptoms? Bhashati iti bhasha. Bhasha can mean description, or bhasha can also have a deeper meaning, which is called as lakshan. Lakshan means symptoms. What are the symptoms of one who is Sthita Pragya? And how does he speak means, how does he respond to favorable and unfavorable situations? When he's put in trouble, when he's put in difficult situation, how does his mind speak? He says, oh, this is because of my prarabdha, and Krishna has put me in this condition, so I'll just tolerate it. When somebody glorifies him, this is also because of prarabdha, I have to tolerate that. So how does he speak means, how does he internally react to different situations? And how does he sit means, how does he control his senses? And how does he move? Rajeta Kim means, while moving out in this material world, when the senses are out in this material world, how he doesn't interact with the sense objects and get attracted to the sense objects, because he's Sthita Pragya. So how does he do that? So these are the deeper meaning of this verse. So here the direct meaning doesn't make sense, and we'll have to take the indirect meaning, that is the Gauna Vritti or the Lakshana Vritti. So this is how we can understand Mukhya Vritti and Gauna Vritti. In fact, this is one of the foundational teachings which has to be taken up as a series to understand philosophy. In the Sarvabhaum Samvad, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya, after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard 7 days the Vedanta Sutta interpretation of Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya, Mahaprabhu was quiet. So Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya is wondering, is he understanding what I'm explaining? So with inquisitiveness he asked. So Mahaprabhu said, yes, the sutras are self-evident. They are like the sun. But your interpretation is like the clouds which is covering the real meaning of the sutras. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was surprised. My goodness, I am the greatest Vedanta philosopher, and he's saying my interpretation is like clouds covering the sun. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained that the Vedic verses have to be read by the Mukhya Vritti, the direct meaning. But when the direct meaning doesn't make sense, only then we should try to see the Abhidha Vritti, the Lakshana Vritti or the Gauna Vritti. Otherwise, we should always read the meaning of the scripture using the Mukhya Vritti or the primary meaning. But you Mayavadis, every verse you try to read it through the Gauna Vritti, that is, you mentally imagine and speculate the meanings based on Gauna Vritti, and you never take up the Mukhya Vritti. I will finish this discussion on Mukhya Vritti and Gauna Vritti and then take up the questions. So we understood this Sthita Pragya. Another question Arjuna is asking in the 14th chapter, the 3 modes. Kairlingais Trin Gunan Etan Atito bhavati prabhu kimmachar katam chaitams tringunan ativartate. O Lord Prabhu, by what symptoms Kair Linga is a person known to be beyond the gunas? Etan trin gunan atito bhavati. How can you understand somebody has transcended the three modes? What is his conduct? Kim achara? How does he surpass the gunas? Katam cha etan trin gunan ativartate. So, three questions Arjuna is asking in this 14th chapter. Now, here, Kair Linga. So, Linga usually, traditionally in the refined Sanskrit language, when the child is born, they ask what is his Linga, whether he's a male or a female. So, that's how Linga is used. But here, Arjuna is not asking about that Linga. So, Linga here, we cannot take the Mukhya meaning, but the Gauna meaning, that is symptoms. What are the symptoms of person who has transcended the three modes? Now, this is about Mukhya Vritti and Gaun Vritti. I gave some examples from the Gita to explain, but let us now go into the definitions of Mukhya Vritti and Gaun Vritti. In fact, in Gaun Vritti, there is again another subdivision, which is spoken in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the personified Vedas. Now, every scripture, there are three levels of reading. This is what Madhvacharya explains, that we should read the scriptures, especially the Puranas and the Itihasas, have to be read through these three different levels. One is called as the literal reading. That is, the events described in these literatures happened historically as they were described. So Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra means literally there is a place Kurukshetra where this Mahabharat battle happened. So the Ramayana or Mahabharata, as the events have been spoken by the sages, Vyasdev and Valmiki, we just literally read them as it is, as actual historical events, and our heart gets purified by such literal reading. Then there is the ethical reading. The ethical reading means these historical events serve as moral benchmark to guide us in our present day ethical decision making. So when you read the scriptures, there are ethical decisions. Arjuna was in a dharma sankata, whether to fight or not to fight. In Bhagavad Gita, 2.6 is mentioning this, that if I fight and win, it is still a defeat. If I don't fight, then I'm deviating from my Kshatriya duty. That is also kind of death for me. And if I fight, we don't know whether we'll win or lose. If we win, that's good. But if we lose, that's also bad. So like that, Arjuna is in a perplexity. And there he is not able to decide. And then he surrenders to Krishna. Similarly, we are sometimes in situations where we are not able to decide. Now, what is an ethical decision? This is also important for us to understand. Moral means what is right and what is wrong. This is good, this is bad. So this is called as moral. But when there are two moral decisions, and among the two morals, we have to weigh which is on the higher level and which is the path I have to take. That is called as ethical decision. Among two morals, Arjuna is caught up between two morals. One is his Kula Dharma. Kula Dharma means he has to protect his family members. If they are killed, then the dharma which is practiced in the Kula, that will be destroyed, as he had given the reasons in the Bhagavad Gita. And then there is the Kshatriya Dharma, that he has to fight a war. So he is having an ethical crisis as to what I should perform, whether I should perform my Kula Dharma or whether I should perform my Kshatriya Dharma. So between two moral decisions, when we are not able to decide, that is very difficult. And that is what is called as a ethical crisis. Now, just to give us for a example, for us, simple example to understand, we are devotees and some of our family friends are calling for a holiday trip to Darjeeling. And the devotees have also had a trip to Mayapur. So, being devotees, we will select this is good, this is spiritual, that is material. So, we will decide to go to Mayapur. But then, if we have a crisis, say, there are two yatras, one is Mayapur and one is Vrindavan, and both the yatras are led by two different sannyasis, and both the sannyasis you like. And then you are in an ethical crisis. Which yatra I should go? Whether I should go to Mayapur or Vrindavan. So that is called as ethical crisis. And we read the literal meaning of the scriptures and we see the whole climax of how within these characters there are some ethical tensions or ethical crises, and we draw lessons on how whatever decision the shastras or these events are narrating, I should also take decisions in that path so that I can go towards dharma. So these historical events serve as moral benchmarks to guide us in our present day ethical decision making. So this is the second level of reading. The third is called as metamorphical or figurative. These historical events symbolize truths relevant to seekers on the spiritual path. Now, what is this figurative? Let us go to some examples. Now, especially I was telling to reading of Ithihas and Puranas like Ramayana and Mahabharata, we do this. Example of literal reading is Ravana abducts Sita. Literal reading purifies us. Ethical reading, example, Sita got attracted to the golden deer. Ethical lesson, not to be attracted to Maya when we are with the Lord. So this is how we can, draw some ethical lessons. Third, metamorphical reading. These events are historical. They can be further meaning derived, looking them as symbols. Now, literally, the 6 sons of Devaki were killed. They were killed. So the 6 children killed by Kamsa, and then Balram, and then Krishna appears, right? So this symbolizes that when the 6 anarthas are killed, the spiritual master appears in the heart and then Krishna. So this is the metamorphical reading. That these pastimes of Kamsa killing the 6 children is like the 6 ripus, the 6 anarthas which are there: Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, and Matsarya. So when we kill these 6 enemies which are in our heart, then first Guru appears in our heart, and by Guru's mercy, Krishna appears in the heart. Just like Balram first appeared in the womb of Devaki, and then he got transferred to Rohini, and then he had made the bed ready for the Lord. The heart was ready now, and then Krishna appeared. So similarly, these can be, the scriptures can be read at a metamorphical level, and this is a further meaning derived as symbols. Not that everything, the whole scripture, you take it symbolically and you don't take the literal reading at all. Prabhupada was very much heavy and against, especially in the modern times, because the whole Mahabharata, they think that actually there was no war which had happened. It was not a historical event. This is not a literal event. Kurukshetra means this body, and the 5 senses are compared to the Pandavas. So like that, all these kind of interpretations are kalpana. These are imaginations. And the Mayavadis like to do this. So this symbolic reading helps us to personalize these events which have happened in the history, and for us as some deeper indication symbols by which we can help us to give a deeper insight of the scriptures for our own practical application. This is metamorphical reading. Now, very important point about metamorphical versus literal has to be done carefully and taken in a proper context so that we don't make any misjudgments. Metaphorical reading has to be done in such a way that it is consistent with the scriptural message. You don't, concoct and bring out some new meaning. Metamorphical should supplement and not supplant the literal reading unless the literal reading leads to obvious absurdities. So we should supplement. That means along with the literal reading, we should have a deeper understanding. It's not that we completely take away the literal reading out. Just I mentioned about this example of Kurukshetra. There is no Kurukshetra. There is no war. It is not a historical event. So that's how Prabhupada was very heavy about it. So here, until the literal meaning or the main primary meaning doesn't make sense, we should not, then only we should resort to this secondary meaning. Now here, this is a line. His house is on Ganga. Gangayam Vasati. This statement that he lives on Ganga doesn't make any sense, because nobody can have a house on the Ganga. Of course, you can build a wooden house on the Ganga, but nobody does that because there is always, some kind of floods. So it's not that literally his house is on Ganga. His house is on the bank of Ganga. So that is how we should understand. So this is about literal meaning and ethical reading and metamorphical. Metamorphical is Lakshana Vritti actually, the Lakshana Vritti, what I explained. Now there is another example given by Tarka Ratna. Tarka Ratna Vedanta Desika. He was one of the great acharyas in the Sri Sampradaya. After Ramacharya, he is considered one of the greatest acharyas. So he mentions that Sita was abducted by Lord Ravana, and he mentions that Lanka is compared to this body and Sita is personified devotion, and Ravana with his 10 heads is compared to the 11 senses, which include the mind. The mind and the 10 senses, the Karmendriya and the Gyanendriya. So just like Ravana was harassing Sita, similarly, when the soul tries to enjoy separately from Krishna, the senses and the mind enjoy in this material world through the 5 senses and the 5 Karmendriyas and the Gyanendriyas. The soul is in trouble, just like Sita was in trouble. And the soul which is there in the body, Sita was there in Lanka, has to take on different bodies. Manashashtani Indriyani Prakritistani Karshati. So it has to take up to different bodies. In the Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter, verse 5 and 6, it is mentioned. I will show the verse so that we get a clear understanding about it. It is mentioned that Mahabhutani Ahankaro Buddhir Avyaktam Evacha Indriyani Dashekam Cha Panchendriya Gochara. Mahabhutani Ahankara. The 24 elements are mentioned. Yeah, Mahabhutani Ahankara Buddhir Avyaktam Evacha Indriyani Dashekam Cha. Dasha Ekam. Dasha Ekam refers to, you can see here, Dasha Ekam is 11. So the 5 Karmendriyas, the 5 Gyanendriyas and the mind. So Ravana is compared to lust personified, and lust is seated in the senses. And when we try to enjoy in this world, just like Sita was harassed by Ravana, the soul goes through this trouble. this body. And Hanuman is like that spiritual master who takes the soul uh, back to the lotus feet of Lord Ram or Lord Krishna. Just like Hanuman came as a messenger of Lord Ram, and ultimately Sita is personified devotion there. So our devotion gets destroyed by when the mind and the senses enjoy with this Ravana-like mentality. So he gives a very wonderful metamorphical reading of this whole event of Ravana abducting Sita. So this is how we should understand metamorphical leading, the literal, the ethical, and the metamorphical. Now I'm summarizing everything from one purport of Srila Prabhupada. Of course, Prabhupada disciples have given this commentary for the 10th canto, 87th chapter, first verse. We should consider that words have three kinds of expressive capacities. This is called as vritti, called Shabda Vritti. Vritti, or to explain the meaning of the words, Shabda Vrittis. These are the different ways a word conveys its meaning, distinguished as Mukhya Vritti, Lakshana Vritti, Gauna Vritti. As I mentioned, Mukhya Vritti is primary meaning. The secondary meaning is called as Gauna Vritti. But within Gauna Vritti is also Lakshana Vritti, but sometimes it is taken as separately. Now let us try to understand what Mukhya Vritti is. The Shabda Vritti termed Mukhya is the primary literal meaning of the word. This is also known as Abhidha, a word's denotation or dictionary meaning. The direct meaning of the word in the dictionary. Mukhya Vritti is further divided into two subcategories, namely Rudhi and Yog. Now, within the Mukhya Vritti, there is two divisions. A primary meaning is called Rudhi when it is based on conventional usage, and Yoga when it is derived from another word's meaning by regular etymological rules. So the conventional usage, when you have in the literal reading, Mukhya Vritti, then it is called as Rudhi. Like, can anyone give an example of the conventional meaning of the word Krishna? Krishna. What is the conventional meaning of the word Krishna? Conventional meaning of the word Krishna. Anyone? No, somebody has typed all attractive. Actually, all attractive is the etymological meaning. Black is also not Krishna. No, that is again, you can say it comes in speculation, because Mayavadis also mentioned Krishna is black. That is not the metamorphical reading also. So Krishna means son of Mother Yashoda, the conventional usage. Krishna means, who is Krishna? Krishna is the son of Mother Yashoda. That is what is called as the conventional meaning. And the etymological meaning of the word Krishna means, you go to the root of the meaning of the word Krish, and Krish means all attractive. So that is what is called as the etymological meaning of the primary meaning. So within the primary, there is a Rudhi and Yog. Now here example is given. For example, the word go, cow, is an example of Rudhi. Go means cow, since its relationship with its literal meaning is purely conventional. So it is a purely conventional way of understanding go as cow. Now, the denotation of the word pachaka, chef, on the other hand, is yoga vritti, through the word's derivation from the word root pach. Pach means to cook by addition of a suffix ka. Pachaka, one who cooks. So that is the meaning of pachaka. So usually the direct meanings, go means cow, and pachaka, pacha means to cook. That is the root meaning. And you have derived by adding a suffix ka. So this is all part of Sanskrit study, where you can deeper understand the meanings of the words and derive greater insight into the Shastras. And we will not go more into it because I'm also not so much studied in depth these uh, understanding of the explanation of the verses based on Sanskrit. But we should have some knowledge, and that's why I'm discussing this. Besides the Mukhya Vritti or primary meaning, a word can also have a secondary metamorphical sense. This usage is called Lakshana, and we saw that. The rule is that the word should not be understood metamorphically if its Mukhya Vritti makes sense in the given context. As I mentioned, Arjuna's question, Sita Pragyasya ka bhasha, Samadhistasya Keshava, Sitadi kim prabhasheta, kim asita vrajeta kim. So the Mukhya Vritti doesn't make sense. So when the Mukhya Vritti doesn't make sense, then only you should resort to understanding the words by Lakshana Vritti. Only after the Mukhya Vritti fails to convey a word's meaning may Lakshana Vritti be justifiably presumed. As we also saw, Trividam Narkasedam Dwaram Nashanam Atmana. How can the soul be destroyed? Because Krishna has said the soul is not destroyed. So we cannot take the literal meaning there, and we should take the Abhidha Vritti there. Nashanam means not that the soul is destroyed, the soul's consciousness is destroyed. The function of Lakshana is technically explained in the Kavya Shastras as an extended reference, pointing to something in some way related to the object of the literal meaning. So, especially in the poetic way, it is taken in the Shastras to give an extended reference. Thus, the phrase Gangayam Ghosha literally means the village cowherd, the cowherd village in the Gangas. So, literally, it means like that. But then you have to read it according to Lakshana. But that idea is absurd. So here Gangayam should rather be understood by its Lakshana to mean on the bank of the Ganges. The bank being something related to the river. So it is related to the river. The bank, Ganga and Ganga bank, they are related. So that is why Lakshana give an extended reference, something in relation to the object of the literal meaning. Gauna Vritti. Now, in this purport, there is a slight technical distinction between the Lakshana Vritti and the Gauna Vritti. Now, Gauna Vritti is a special kind of Lakshana where the meaning is extended to some idea of similarity. So there is some similarity. Let us see. For example, in the statement, Simho Devadatta. Devadatta is a lion. Heroic Devadatta is metamorphically called a lion because of his lion-like qualities. So there is similarity. Lion is very, very strong. And even Devadatta is very strong. So there is some similar comparison. Even in the Gita, Krishna addresses Arjuna as Purusha Vyagra. Purusha Vyagra means Purusha, you're a man. Vyagra means tiger. Oh, tiger among men. Because tiger is like the king of the forest in one sense. Tiger and lion, they are very ferocious in their attacks. So Kshatriya have that spirit. So, oh, tiger among men. So that is, we cannot say that Arjuna is a tiger. No, there is a comparison of Arjuna made to the tiger. So that is Gauna Vritti, or the special kind of reading in Lakshana Vritti. In contrast, the example of a general kind of Lakshana, namely Gangayam Ghosha, involves a relationship not of similarity but of location. So here a technical difference between the Lakshana Vritti and the Gauna Vritti. Gauna Vritti, there is relationship, and in the Lakshana Vritti, there is relationship of the location, but in Gauna Vritti, there is similarity which in the comparison. So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:87, first purport, the personified Vedas. So, yes. So this is what we have now discussed regarding Mukhya Vritti and Gaun Vritti. And now if you have questions, you can raise your hands. You can take up. Discuss quite in detail the Mukhya Vritti and the Gaun Vritti. Virendra Yadav Prabhuji had a question. Yes. Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam. Actually, Prabhuji, it is not question. It is just to clarify.
One second. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, actually, it is not question. It is just clarification. This is how we should be seeing all the purports presented by Srila Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita.
Yes. At least many devotees cannot devote time to study of Sanskrit and understand Vyakaran and the meanings, how the words are joined and different meanings. It's a very vast science, but at least the basic thing of how to read the scriptures. There are these 3 levels of reading. Madhvacharya is mentioning the literal reading, the ethical reading, and the metamorphical reading. At least these things you should know. And then what is the Mukhya Vritti, Gauna Vritti, and Lakshana Vritti? And how Prabhupada in his word-to-word meanings is giving different meanings. And when we study scrutinizingly, some understanding we'll get, and we'll get some taste for studying the Shastra. Oh, here it means like this. So this is how we need to read the Shastra and understand the Shastra. So that's why it helps, and that's why I elaborately discuss this. Yes, we should, at least with this basic background, study the Shastras like this, and that will be very helpful. Any other questions anyone has? We discussed quite in detail this Abhidha Vritti, which was mentioned in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Harinam Chintamani. Okay. Shrutira Abhidha Vritti Kare Samyojana Shuddha Bhakti Lave Jiva Paye Premadana. By following the activities described in the Vedas, one achieves pure devotion by the Mukhya Vritti only, and then the primary meaning. Now, further verses will become very clear. Shrutite Lakshana Kare Ayata Prakare Nitya Satya Dure Yaya Aparada Mare. One who does not follow the Vedas throws the eternal truth far away. Because of his offense, he is lost. Shrutira Lakshana. So if you try to interpret the Vedas through Lakshana directly, not at all accepting the Mukhya, only rare places when the Mukhya Vritti doesn't make sense, then only you have to interpret that verse based on Lakshana. But if you take everything according to Lakshana, then you go far away from the eternal truth. And because of this aparad, you are lost. Sarva Veda Sammata Pranava Krishna Nam Seiname Jiva Sabha Paye Nitya Dham. All the Vedas declare that the sacred syllable Om is the name of Lord Krishna. By chanting Lord Krishna's name, one attains eternal spiritual abode. Seiname Jiva Paye Nitya Dham. So the Vedas clearly proclaim that Pranava Omkar is the sacred syllable of the Vedas, which is the name of Lord Krishna. In fact, in the Gita also Krishna emphatically declares this, and that's why I wanted to show this verse. This is in 18.13. Om Ityekaksharam Brahma Vyavaran Mam Anusmaran Ya Prayati Tajandeham Sayati Paramam Gatim. So this is exactly what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is telling in this verse, 48th verse, if you see. In the 48th verse is saying that it is Om is the name of Krishna, and by chanting Om, one will attain the eternal abode. So here also this verse is saying Om iti ek aksharam. Om, the uttering Om iti ek aksharam, Brahma Vyavaran. It is describing the absolute truth, which is Brahman. Vyavaran ma manusmaran. One should remember me constantly, Krishna is saying. That means Om is referring to Krishna. Yah prayati tajan deham. One who quits his body Sa yati paramam gatim, attains my planet, sa paramam gatim. So this is how Krishna is also giving the same understanding and explanation here in this verse. Now, yes, Pranava Omkar is directly referring to Krishna, and Prabhupada also makes this clear in his purport. It is clearly stated here that Om, Brahman, and Lord Krishna are not different. So Prabhupada gives a deeper insight here. The impersonal sound of Krishna is Om, but the sound Hare Krishna contains Om. The chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is clearly recommended for this age. So if one quits his body at the end of life, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, he certainly reaches one of the spiritual planets according to the mode of his practice. The devotees of Krishna enter Krishna planet, Golok Vrindavan. For the personalists, there is also the innumerable other planets known as Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, whereas the impersonalists remain in the Brahmajyoti. Now, actually, Om represents Krishna, but there is impersonal sense. If our conception is that ultimately Om is impersonal, then with that conception, if you chant, then ultimately you'll attain Brahmajyoti. So Prabhupada makes it very, very clear. Like to give a very crude example, the judge in the court is addressed as, "Oh my Lord." That is like something like Om. The same judge, when he comes to the home, his father, his mother, take his personal, very intimately, Munna Bhai, Munna or Rama. So they will not call him as, "Oh my Lord," in a awe and reverence sense. They will call him by his personal name. So Krishna likes to be called by his personal name: Kana, Kanaya, Krishna, Gopal. So like that, there are these primary names, and that is why Prabhupada is very emphatic in his purport, and he is explaining that. So this is regarding verse 48 about Om. Pranava se maka vakya hoye Krishna nam tahate e Shri Bhaktira Satata Vishram. The sacred syllable Om, which is the Mahavakya, the great statement of the Vedas, is the name of Lord Krishna. A devotee of Lord Krishna eternally enjoys pastimes in that sacred syllable. वेद बोले नाम चित्त स्वरूप जगते नामेरा आभास सिद्ध होए सर्वमते. The Vedas explain the spiritual nature of Lord Krishna's holy name to the whole world. Veda bole nama chitta swarup jagate. Even the shadow of the holy name grants all perfection. Namara abhasa siddha hoy sarva mate. Now, after explaining this, now from text 51 to 54, the Vedas teach the pure and the transcendental worship of the holy name. So within the Vedas, we should understand them by Mukha Vritti and not always by Lakshana Vritti. And what the Vedas ultimately take, teach us to take the holy name. And here, based on the Vedic understanding, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is mentioning about the Om, but ultimately we know that it is Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Ei sab Veda Shiksha abhaga na mane nama parada kare Vedera nindana. Unfortunate people who do not understand the teachings of the Vedas criticize them. In this way, they offend the holy name. So one who doesn't understand what the Vedas are teaching, actually they are teaching the holy name of the Lord. And one who doesn't understand these teachings, also he commits Shruti Shastra Nindanam. Shuddha Nama Parayana Ei Mahajan Vedashraya Paye Nama Rasa Premadhan. Great souls, Mahajan, who take shelter of the pure name, accepting the authorities of the Vedas, attain the nectar of the holy name and a great treasure of the pure love of Lord Krishna. Vedashraya Paye Nama Rasa Premadhan. Sarva Veda Bole Goy Hari Namasar Pabe Parama Priti Ananda Par. All the Vedas declare, Sarva Veda Bole, chant the holy name of Lord Krishna. Goy means sing, Hari Namasar. By chanting, you will attain spiritual love and bliss that have no end. Paye Parama Priti Ananda Apar. Apar means it is unending. Veda Puna Bole Yata Mukta Mahajan Paravyoma Sada Kare Nama Sankirtan. Again, they say, Veda Pune Bole, the great liberated souls in the spiritual world always chant the holy name. So Prabhupada was asked, what are you going to ultimately achieve by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra? Prabhupada said, we'll continue to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So in the spiritual world also, the pure devotees in pure separation of the Lord are chanting the holy names and deriving newer and newer ecstasy. So the sadhana and the sadhya remain the same. So text 55 onwards is a very short session, which we will take up tomorrow. And we will end this discussion on the 7th chapter and begin the 8th chapter, interpretation of the holy name, Arthavad, Name Arthavad Aparad. That we will begin tomorrow. Any questions, any clarifications? Okay, so we'll stop here. Shri Harinam Chintamani ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Hare Krishna.